We're talking now with Gary. Gary, you're with Allworth's Money Matters.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Gary.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. What can we do to help?
Well, I have a situation where my wife and I, my wife is 73, I'm 75, and started taking my RMDs 2 years ago, and she was scheduled to take hers this year. But in May, we discovered that all of our retirement money had been locked up, basically. We had just over $1 million in two brokerage or two custodial accounts. And the person that was in charge of those accounts invested that money in real estate, which for several years has been a really good experience for us. We've got a nice return on our other investments. But we found out that when we went to access those monies to pay our RMDs, that it was frozen. It was gone.
Yes.
The custodial account says
no, the money was gone.
We think the money is gone because the person that was responsible, the financial person was responsible, took the money and invested it in real estate. So when it was time for us to do our RMDs, he would always put money into the custodial account so our RMDs could be paid. But now he is under investigation by the FBI and the SEC and by Internal Revenue. So he is unavailable.
So sorry.
Is this like local? Is it a local person, or is this a syndicated? Was there a name in the investment fund, or is just
no?
It's like
this
Bill's
is a local guy.
And who was the custodian?
Madison Trust and Prudential or Provident.
Okay, it hasn't been Prudential. It would have been so much better. Madison Trust and Provident. Yeah.
So I guess the question is, we know that there's ongoing lawsuits right now back and forth between a couple of partners, and there's a potential class action lawsuit and whatnot. But when it comes down to everything else, we know that we have a responsibility for RMDs.
You don't, though. You don't have a responsibility.
Well, it's based upon what value you have.
That's correct. And as of now, the value appears to be zero.
But with those two custodial, they have the value at what last year's value said. So,
but that's not. But
it was a lie.
But it wasn't true then at all either. So
no,
you can ask them to restate the value.
Yes,
I talked to people at Madison Trust, and they said that I can file a form that if I do that, then I cannot repopulate that money if we get money back.
What does that mean?
Well, I'm not quite sure, except that they said if you can maintain the account with the knowledge that there's a lawsuit going on and that you might get some money back, and that way there's money in that.
I would do that.
Account.
I would do that. I would not forfeit the account if
that's correct.
Yeah,
correct. But you could put an account value in there of $1.
Well, let's assume the custodian's not going to do anything.
Right.
I don't file taxes for a living.
But I would
have.
most certainly go to my accountant.
Yes.
And ask them to write a letter of explanation to the IRS.
Yes, there's got to be something around. There's no money there, and it appears there may be no assets.
Well, that's true. We don't know if the assets that we were supposedly investing in, we don't know if they have value or not.
Yeah, or if this is just a big Ponzi scheme. There's a couple pieces of property, but there's no real equity left.
I hate to hear that, but yes, that's a possibility.
Oh, of course you'd hate to hear it. I mean, we hate to say it. It's tragic. It's terrible. But the RMDs, right? The custodian has a responsibility to you, right, to help you recover that money. And by the way, unfortunately, the custodians that these types of firms use are typically smaller.
That's because the big custodians what?
They won't touch it.
Yeah, because of stuff like this.
They won't touch it. So you can move that account balance to $100. Ask them to restate it to $100.
They may not. It sounds like they're not going to.
But if they don't, you still can't do a distribution because you have no idea. So your tax preparer, look, the IRS has seen this. The IRS is
There was an article in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago about something very similar.
Yes, which was the person had the same worry that they were going to have to actually have to do pay taxes on the RMDs that were non-existent. I wouldn't worry about that. They go to a good tax preparer, ask them to how do I handle this? And it isn't unusual to write a letter attached to your tax return explaining what a situation is so that when it gets flagged for audit, they look at it and you're like, holy smokes, right? But you can't get blood out of a rock. There's nothing there to do an RMD with.
No, and I'd like to squeeze the rock as much as I can, but no blood out.
It would be great if a couple years from now, there's properties that were sold and suddenly you've got a bunch of money back in your account, and the IRS says, "Hey, you should have taken the RMD,"
and you go back in and file amended returns and take the RMD.
Yeah, and pay a penalty on a very small amount relative to anything you're going to recover.
Okay.
All righty. Just get yourself. Who does your taxes?
I do, unfortunately.
Okay, not this year.
Not this year.
Yeah,
not this year.
And I would probably have a couple phone calls with someone who's there's people who've dealt with this before. I'd rather use a CPA that has done this before than someone you have to pay to do a bunch of research.
That's right.
So have a couple phone calls.
Actually, and you're going to say the guy wants $400 an hour, and the answer is
okay, or $500.
Right.
You're going to want if you're going to want someone who's done this before. It's a simple process. Their hourly rate might be worse than that, but they're not going to. It won't take them that much time or her that much time.
Yes. So.
Okay.
All right, Gary. Sorry you're in this situation.
All right. Thanks, guys, very much.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
And this is one of the reasons why we're not a big fan of having real estate in retirement accounts.
Well, I was thinking
for various reasons.
I was thinking that this was the worst case scenario. I thought he was going to ask the question. I thought that there would just be no cash in the account because it was real estate. Is that where you were going?
That's
with
right.
it?
So for the most, it's a very rare situation and tragic. But I've certainly seen plenty of people, and it's marketed a lot, like use your retirement account to own real estate. Well, if you do that, when you hit required minimum distribution age, one, who's going to value? How do you value that property on an annual basis?
True.
Two, where do you get the income to pay to make your required minimum distributions? And if you've been taking the income out of that retirement account because it's making your lifestyle needs, and suddenly your required minimum distribution is greater than the cash there, you got to go somehow borrow money against that property.
It's cumbersome.
And I think about that. You can't have loans against it.
Yeah, you can't internally. Yes,
it's problematic, and you'd lose out the depreciation and
but
step
then,
up.
It used to be hyped years ago to put real estate. I don't hear much of
heard
it anymore. Have you?
Well, when the stock market's going great, next time the stock market goes down, it'll be preserve your life, whatever.
All I know is gold's the answer to everything.
Yeah, of course. It looks good.